Hello there, my name's TechDave, and today we're looking once again at my X200 and probably my X230 as well, but that'll be more apparent later on. What I've done is, at the end of my last video, I took it upon myself to install Windows XP on my X200. Let's give it some time. And I figured it would just make an interesting video. So I've got an eGPU set up, I've got a whole row of DVD and CD games from back in the day. I've got like a few different things to benchmark and test, but this is basically my ultimate Windows XP with vaguely period correct ThinkPad, with a few modern twists and a few updated parts and upgraded additional modern extras. But I just figured it'd be really interesting to sort of see how a Core 2 Duo, that's what I was waiting for, performs I'll tell you more later on in the video. I made a little cheesy intro bit of which you'll see next. So let's dive right on in. So I've got my X200. Wait. Is that a Windows XP product key? That is a very good question. Why do people love Windows XP? This gives me an idea. So for those that didn't click off due to my cringeworthy little cheesy introduction, I want to talk about the specs of my particular X200. For those that can actually see this, so you can see I've got like a bunch of games already installed on there. But I believe it's the Core 2 Duo P8400 at 2.4 gigahertz. So I'll put the correct titles here. I've got one 2 gig stick of RAM, one 4 gig stick of RAM, both DDR3 PC8500, again that'll be the correct name will be there. I've got a 320 gig hard drive. I've got the EXP stock with a GT 710, and then I've got my little dock set up here as well, which is just the DVD drive from my T430 sort of forcibly inserted into the Ultrabase 200, the X200 Ultrabase, which is also known as the Ultrabase 2, but this one particularly claims to be the X200 Ultrabase. And then what I'll probably be doing moving forward is just showing you on my X200, because I've already got this set up and it's sweet and it's working well and it does what I need it to do. I'm going to use my X230 to show you how to get Windows XP onto a modern laptop using USB boot. Now there are a few provisos and things that you need to have prior to this being possible. One of those is Snappy driver installer. Now I would recommend getting the full download. I'll leave a link in the description to where to get it. And then just stick that on a USB stick and be patient. You'll also need one or two USB sticks. I just use one large USB stick. I use this 32 gig SanDisk USB 3. USB 3, obviously this doesn't have USB 3, but it still performs slightly better on the USB 2 anyway. So 32 gigs is sufficient to put multiple operating systems on it. And the Snappy driver installer. So the second system, the thing we need to get the system updated is easy to boot. And I'll leave a link in the description. You want the easy to boot with DPMS, which is drivers for Windows XP 32-bit. I'll explain more about that later. And then, it's gone to sleep. Lovely. Having a little snooze there. And then, rule number 3, you need to acquire a legitimate or as it's I'm not encouraging piracy. You need to acquire the ISO file of the original Windows XP 32-bit installer disk, and then additionally to that, you need to own an X200. You need a hard drive, and to be honest, 5400 RPM would be good enough. But yeah, 7200 RPM, relatively large capacity, 7mm drive for the X200. You're going to need a desktop power supply or a Dell DA-2 power supply, especially if you're running a GT710. You don't need anything to write home about power supply wise, so you could just use the Dell adapter, which I'll leave a link to in the description if I remember. You're going to need an external display, because when the X200 is connected to an eGPU, there is no internal display whatsoever. At any point while the eGPU is connected, it automatically ignores the internal graphics chip and goes straight to the eGPU, so you will need an external display. There's no way to feed the internal display. Then you obviously need a mouse, keyboard, and I think I already said a hard drive. And then I'm going to switch over to screen capture now and show you how to do the prep for the actual device, because what you need to do is switch from AHCI, for example, to compatibility mode, and turn off secure boot and UEFI boot and all these sort of things. But I'll be back on screen capture to show you how to do that. Cheers. So here we are. So this is the end result. You can tantalisingly look at the games that we'll test once I've shown you how to get all this installed up here. So look, I've currently got The Witcher Enhanced Edition Director's Cut, Unreal Tournament 2004, Fallout 3, Battlefield 2, Doom, Half-Life, Civilization, Open Arena, which is basically Quake, runs on the same engine, should work fine. Half-Life, that's just for this Counter-Strike Warzone, which is basically just Counter-Strike, like a modded version to run. And that's the online player. And then obviously we've got Windows Media Player, which is glorious, heavenly thing. But that is not what I need to show you at this stage. I've also got a ton of other games. I don't know if you can see, just behind me there is a whole row of games. So that is yet to come. That'll be later in the video. But for now, what we need to do is... Oh, new programs installed. Oh yeah, this is the end result as well. I got like the whole animation shop, Paint Shop Pro 7. I've got all the Microsoft Office suite. It's just glorious. I've got Civilization as well, but that's not on the oh, it is on the desktop. Battlefield 2, Doom runs beautifully. But I'll show you more about that later on. We've got, oh, look at this, look at all these good things. We've even got some stuff from XP Plus, but we'll come back to that later on. For now, what we need to do, but also this is nice. After I installed all the drivers in the Unofficial service pack, which again I'll show you, this is the undock computer function, which is a specifically dockable ThinkPad thing, which I just thought was really nice. So here we go. Oh yeah, I love just the sound pack on this operating system is just heavenly. Now I need to see if I can boot to BIOS, which is what you will need to do to get to this position, which is the main point of this section. So I'm just going to just spam F1. Obviously you're just seeing the no signal here. Here we go. So it's not stretched to the right size, but basically this is what you want to get to. The issue that I have with this is that every now and again you just need to detach the battery after a cold boot. I don't know why that is. I think maybe the real-time clock might be going, but basically config, we want to go down to serial ATA. You want to switch it from AHCI, which is for more modern operating systems, to compatibility, and then you also need, there's something else, what was it? I can't remember. Actually, I think that's it. Just make sure that's all correct. Yeah, everything should be working fine now. And then, as you can see here, I've just changed the boot order slightly. But if you're using a more modern machine, you might need to turn off secure boot and UEFI boot, but it's not really UEFI boot. But that's not really relevant for this system. So you save configuration and exit. Now you also need to boot to BIOS with the USB setup. So we're going to look at that next. All the things you need to gather to make this work, excluding the operating system, which unfortunately you will just have to source on your own. There's nothing I can do about that. So I'll see you in the next section where we look at preparing a USB stick for the setup of a USB installable version of Windows XP. Hello. So, other things that we need to go to the following web pages. Let's start with Easy to Boot. You need to go to easy2boot.xyz/download, and then you go to this link or hyperlink here, the FOSS-Hub downloads page, and we're looking for, on this page, if you're on Windows 10, obviously there's ones for Linux and other operating systems, but I'm using Windows 10 to flash the drive, excuse me, and you also need the DPS disk drivers for installing, as you can see, for installing XP ISO onto system. So you click that one, get it downloaded. I'm not going to because I've already got it. This is something I have as well, which is, it just helps so you can keep the system entirely air gapped. So I don't intend at any point to put my X200 online with Windows XP. There's ways of doing that. I know you can make it relatively secure. I just don't intend to do that. So I thought I'd get all the additional updates that came from Windows, and well, you can read this here if you go to the website. It's archive.org/details/Windows-XP-Service Pack 4. You get the Windows executable, which will run, and literally you just download. Which one do I have? No .NET. I just use this one here, and it's about a gigabyte. Next thing that I think is pretty essential. I mean, if you're right, so this link, it doesn't let you download it directly for some reason, but you can get the old one. This one here works perfectly. If you're willing to put your X200 online, just to get the drivers installed, then that's absolutely fine. If you go via Ethernet, if you use a antivirus, if you use the most modern driver you possibly browser you possibly can, then you can just log in where this is. It's 5 megabyte. You put it on your USB stick and it's fine. If you can, I would recommend downloading this full one here. Now the link appears to be broken, but there are other ways to get it. It's just a little torrent file, and then you can download the whole thing. Now, security wise, and you only have to download it once and you put it in a USB stick, it works. So if I go back to the home page, it works on Windows 2000, XP, Vista, 7, 8, 8.1, 10 and 11. Now it is worth having this downloaded, basically, because I can't emphasize this enough, because any level of system, whatever operating system it is, this thing will just find the drivers for that computer, for anything from Windows 2000 to Windows 11. And if you do what I do a lot, which is just make things do weird stuff on the wrong operating system, or force old hardware to do new things and force new hardware to do old things, as I so often do, this proves to be invaluable. Now I recommend this video here, installing Windows XP from a USB flash drive with Easy to Boot, because this is what we're about to do. And you can see it's got the key moments here. And yeah, this will be an additional asset to you, so I will leave this in the cards probably, and a link to it in the description. So I will check that out, just basically to help guide you if there's any additional information you need. But it should be, should be relatively straightforward. So I'm going to move on to the USB installation, but let me just turn my phone onto silent and actually be professional. Right, so first things first. As I so often say, I didn't remember to put my phone on silent because I'm a chump. Once you install the first thing I showed you to get, which is the Easy to Boot with DPMS drivers, it'll either run automatically or you'll have this here, and then you want to click, I think this one. There we go. And you want to run it as administrator, as you may have just noticed. I forget that every time I do this. Then you whack your USB stick in. I'm not going to do anything here because all I've got is my 2 terabyte drive, which I'm not doing. Pick your keyboard layout and then just hit that button there. I'm not going to do that now because I don't have my USB drive in. But then what I'm going to do is plug in my USB drive and show you what you do next. I say that Phil's Computer Lab video will be invaluable to you during this process. Sorry, I'm just off camera. So, then what you want to do, with all these resources downloaded, I'll show you what I've got. So, I've got my games that I got from GOG, but we'll get to that later, because you can do manual downloads. There's the Snappy driver installer, and it should look like this. And there's the 64-bit one and the 32-bit one there. And these are all your drivers, and you can use them to go through and manually install stuff, or it's got a launcher, but we'll show you that when we're in XP. And then ISO, and you put your Windows XP ISO file, which you can capture from a disk used in a number of ways, which I'm not going to show you, but there it is. There's my Windows XP ISO. And then it should create 2 partitions, so this is your boot partition. I don't use Ventoy, but you can use Ventoy as well with this, so that you can install multiple operating systems across multiple things. But I mean, even with this original, you just add your ISO file. So you see you've got Windows 10, 11, 8, 7, Vista, and Windows Server, Windows 2000, stuff like that. So you can add all your drivers there. Drivers, what am I talking about? Operating system files. So if your USB is big enough, you can store all of that on it. But what I would recommend doing is keeping, if I show you the size of this, I don't need Adrenaline open. Stop. If I show you the size of this, so it's 14.44 gig, unless you've got a very large USB stick, you're going to need to keep those files, your ISO files, as limited as possible. And we're only doing XP here, so that's fine. Alright, I've ejected that. Now, I'm waffling through caffeine. Next thing for me to do is to basically show you from there. Now I'm going to use my X230 to demonstrate this because I need the X230 to be on XP later on. But if you've done the BIOS thing from the previous section, it's basically an identical process. There's an extra step with the X200 whereby you need to disable UEFI boot, but that's not necessarily relevant if you're just following along for the X200, so I will show you that next. Just a quick heads up, so the other thing you need to change, if you're using, say, the X230 like I'm using for my demo, it's just this setting basically. So I had it on UEFI both originally, legacy first, which might be fine, but for now I'm just going to put it on legacy only. And then you also have to do the same thing as before, which is compatibility. So I'm going to boot in. This should be showing on that screen and it's not, so I just thought I'd quickly do that. And then F12 is the same on the X200 as it is on the X230. When you got USB in, you boot from the USB. Boom, and then I'll show you the rest on capture if I can. Here we are, capturing. Finally, I just had to switch the boot display device on the ThinkPad to. Anyway, you don't care. Right. So yeah, that's the internal bay drive, and that's. Oh wait, hold on. Atto HDD1 is the internal drive, and then that one's the internal, that one's the bay, and then we're looking for the USB stick, and then you'll be greeted with this screen. So first things first, we go down to Windows Install menu. You'll be seeing it slightly delayed after I do. Then you go to step 1, and the user's there on the ISO. And for this, I use 3, because Windows Service Pack 3 that I've got. And then I use 2 here. You can use with Viridis disk and WinBlock together as well. You can use 3 as well, but I have on the X200 I specifically had to use 2 here for the SATA drivers, etc. And yep, loading to RAM. This will take a minute. So yeah, everything else is just a standard Windows XP install, but I would definitely check out that Phil's Computer Lab video, because he shows you just a bit more detail. And yeah, while I'm using this tool, it's great because you can use it to install even Windows 98 and just any operating system from Windows 98, Linux as well. Little GNU Linux it works perfectly well with. There we go, start now. And this should boot us into Windows XP. There we go, the setup. And from here, it's just figuring out which drive to install on. And I have my X230 docked, and I had my X200 docked. But the X230 in the dock has a 500 gig drive, so if you're watching, remind me not to write onto the 500 gig drive. But in theory, yep, we're good to go. So what we got? This is 64 gig. Ooh, that's interesting. 57 gig. Interesting. So that's our USB stick. That's 30. And then 500 gig, that's the one I want to keep free. So it must be these two. I must have had something on this operating system. So D to delete, L to complete that process, and then D again and L. And then we're going to quick format this exact partition. 57. Give me a minute, I'm just going to pause the recording just to make sure I've not messed anything up. After a few seconds of pondering, I realised I didn't put a hard drive in here, I put an SSD in here. So that is why it is 60 gig. That makes sense. I'm going to proceed with my SSD. I wouldn't recommend or necessarily say there's any point in having an SSD. It speeds up the system a bit, but on Windows XP you can get a fluid of performance as you might desire without needing to use an SSD. So if you've only got a hard drive, or you've got it in your dock and you want to use it as a secondary drive, or you're just experimenting, it works perfectly well with a hard drive. You come across some issues using SSDs with Windows XP where you don't get as much life out of them. So again, there is a Phil's Computer Lab video. I'm not going to link it, but if you're curious, go and look up his channel via the link of the last video. He shows a way to add trim, basically, because you don't natively have trim. Now, before I explain that further, here you need to boot again directly to the USB, so you don't let it boot. There we go. So you want to just enter an F12, and if it doesn't, you want to basically boot to the USB stick again rather than into the operating system. It's not letting me do that for some reason, which is slightly concerning. In fact, it seems to have frozen up, which is interesting. So I'm going to, there we go, enter, interrupt, F12. Ooh, that's going slow, that. I don't know what that's about. But you can see it blow for blow with me, my failures. Let's try again, Control Alt Delete. Control Alt Delete. There we go. Start interrupt menu. Little BIOS beep. I don't know what this is, so I'm going to figure it out and then come back and explain it to you. Running slow, but just while I had it paused, it launched the startup interrupt menu. So I'm guessing it's slow because the RAM is occupied, or because I made some slight error with what I was doing. But you see the little blue cursor? That doesn't fill me with much confidence. And my keyboard isn't responding correctly, my external keyboard. So I'm going to fully stop the recording, try and get it to reboot and see what the issue is. Future TechDave here. So you'll have just seen what would be this section. There's supposed to be a 5B, but I accidentally deleted it. In a nutshell, I would recommend watching, which will be in the cards here, Phil's Computer Labs video. But basically, after what you just saw, you do the first part of the installation, and then when Windows XP reboots, you press F12 again, boot from the disk again, and select option 2. And I don't have a bit of capacity or patience or time to refilm that, but that's what you do, and then it continues the full normal Windows XP installation, which you will see the end results of in just a moment. And we're in. So from here, my mouse and keyboard are not working still, my external one. You want to go up here and you want to click yes and remove the fire disk driver, because that'll be taking up RAM on your system. Ooh. Yeah, restart now. Why not? And then once we've gotten through this, I'll be back. Basically, I need to show you how to install Snappy driver and stuff, so I'll be back with that. I'm just going to let it do the boot cycle. After a quick cheeky cigarette and letting that do the blah 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 blah. Don't smoke, it's bad for your kids. I'm going to start my computer. Look at this. Open Snappy driver. And you want the 32-bit version, which is the only one that will have a valid icon. Run. You want to unblock it if you need it to go online, then that's fair enough. So you create a restore point. It's got everything you need here. Obviously this stuff will all be different on the X200, but we've got everything we need there available. So I'm going to select all, and then you let that run. It'll probably need to restart after that's done, but this gives you a version of viable, usable all drivers for your system. And this can take a while. So let me think. Brain. What was I going to say? So yeah, you do the basic device first. Then you run an Unofficial Service Pack 4, which should be on, like, if you got it, you put it on USB. Run that as well. That'll give you all your drivers and everything. I've already got mine on it. What is all this drivel? Cool. Then, because the X200 doesn't have any display alternatives once the eGPU is attached, you run your Unofficial Service Pack 4, then you run Snappy driver again just to get the drivers for your GPU, which it's got an extensive set of drivers for most graphics cards. But with the X200, I have found that you probably don't want, you're probably not able to use anything other than a 1 gig GPU basically. And you see, I've got 8 gigs of RAM in here. You'll only have 3 gigs of RAM, but it is what it is. I'll black out some of that information. Yeah, I haven't been able to get the X200 to boot with anything bigger than a 1 gig GDDR5 card. So I'd say if you're following along specifically for the X200, I would go with a 1 gig graphics card, such as the GT 710 or something like that. Or I think I did a 560 Ti, which was like hench, that was GDDR5 and had a big blower style cooler. But then you'll need a more powerful power supply for ATX power and the 6-pin power for the graphics card. So it's entirely up to you what you want to do. I'm going to keep this air gapped. I didn't want my mobile broadband device installed, but I'm just not going to connect to it. Blah blah blah. Let's not do this. No connecting to the internet. Cancel. No connecting to the internet, you naughty computer. But yeah, as you can see, it's installing all my drivers. No, not this time, etc. Blah blah blah. It's just sorting it itself. No. Luckily I don't have a SIM card in here either, so it can't connect to the network anyway. I just let... Oh god, that's annoying. But yeah, I'm not going to make you sit through any more of this with me waffling. I'll be back once I've got an Unofficial Service Pack 4 ready to roll, and I've done a full restart and installed all these drivers. Sweet. So we're in after a full restart, and if I'm, in the interest of full disclosure, it automatically installed the wrong drivers, so it installed HD 3000 drivers. Excuse me. And then I got black screen every time I did it, so I had to press F8 at boot and go into it and redo the driver install. I'm not doing that now, I don't even know what it is. Alright, yeah, screw that, I don't need it. But yeah, basically, other than whatever this is, I can't even remember what it is. I'm just going to disable that. Everything is working perfectly. I'm also going to just quickly hit the Wi-Fi kill switch down here on the X230. And then all there is left to do now is go back to our USB and find our Unofficial Service Pack 4, which you can either have put on before or add to your USB stick once you're done. So I'm going to install this, boot back in, then I'm going to do the eGPU drivers, then the emulated install process will be totally complete. So I'm not going to make you sit through all that. I'll just briefly show you the eGPU install in the next scene, but after this is done and we've got the eGPU connected and installed, we're going to dive into some games. So back on actually on the X200, so the X230 is there. This is the X200 with Ultra Bay, and I'm going to be playing on this, show you the performance of that device, and then possibly later on what I was thinking was a few games, doing like a little mini Windows XP LAN party with my partner, fiance. So we're going to do that. So next will be the eGPU install, which is so simple, but I'm going to include it anyway, so I'll see you in that. So it is the next day. Some of my footage got messed up and I don't quite know how, but what I did have here was me showing you how to install the eGPU drivers. Now, there's no point to that because basically you just do the complete installation, attach your eGPU, then get Snappy driver up again and install the drivers. Now you can see over here, if I go to my computer, no, anyway, yeah, basically the GT710 drivers are fully installed and I'm running it via that now. What else was I going to say? So yeah, it's relatively straightforward basically, and this around me is the end result, which is the X200 with GT710 with a fully installed, fully working version of Windows XP and all those games that you see up on the screen there. I've also just installed Fraps, so we're going to get Fraps running for some benchmarks later on. But for now, we want to show all of these. I'll put the overlay in the top right. There is a cat crying at me. But yeah, the next thing I'm going to show is games. So probably going to do a little LAN party with the X230, which I've now got set up here. We've got a little offline, we've got a little router set up. I'll show you that on a different angle, but I'll be back. So, in a nutshell, this is the completed project. So we've got an X200 with DVD drive there. We've got the, you won't be able to see it probably through there, but the green light there is the eGPU EXPB stock working with the GT710. Coming out of the GT710 into my capture card into there, and then we've got a router that's not actually connected to the internet with the X230. So that once my partner's finished her nap, she's tired, bless her, we're going to have a little LAN party setup thing just for Unreal Tournament 2004. And then after that, or before that, depending where you're seeing this, I'm going to benchmark some games using Fraps, show you how it performs on Windows XP. This will absolutely smash every game I've got here. I've got like a whole row. If I could be bothered, I would show every single game, but I'm not going to because that'll take too long. The one bummer here is that is the Mac OS version. I'd love to play Quake 4. That's going to be put on there next, so we'll see how we get on, and I'll be back with either the LAN party or some benchmarking of some games. Sweet.